Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something pretty weird?
Weird is kind of our specialty, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about epigastric olfactorosis, EO
Yeah.
for short.
Kitschy.
Yeah. So, you probably haven't heard of it.
Most people haven't.
And it's this condition that basically causes a bad odor
A really bad odor, actually.
coming from the belly button.
Yeah, the belly button. Not something you hear about every day.
Nope. So we've got this in-depth scientific review paper
Yeah.
as our guide.
Really dives into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. And we're going to try to pull out the most interesting bits for you.
Some real head scratchers in there.
So first off, what is EO?
Well, the paper defines it as a persistent bad odor, specifically from the upper abdomen. Often goes hand in hand with other symptoms, too. Bloating, diarrhea, that kind of thing.
Oh, so kind of like IBS.
Yeah, a lot of overlap there. And the likely culprit seems to be an imbalance in the gut bacteria, what we call dysbiosis.
Gut bacteria. That's something we hear a lot about these days. How does that tie into a smelly belly button?
Well, you see, when certain bacteria break down food in your gut, they produce these compounds as byproducts.
Yep.
And some of them are really stinky.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, and these smelly compounds, they can actually be excreted through your sweat, leading to, that distinct odor.
So it's not just any bacteria causing this. It's specific types that are known for being extra smelly, I guess.
Exactly. The paper even names a couple of the usual suspects. Clostridium difficile, Bacteroides fragile. Real stinkers, those ones.
Right. I've heard of C. diff. Isn't that the one that can cause those really nasty infections?
That's the one. It can really wreak havoc in the gut. And Bacteroides fragilis, well, that one's known for producing some particularly pungent sulfur compounds.
Lovely. So we've got these bacteria producing stinky byproducts, and those are getting released through our sweat. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But the paper also mentions something called leaky gut as a possible factor.
Ah, yes. Leaky gut, that's a whole other can of worms.
Can you unpack that a little? What exactly is leaky gut, and how does it fit into all of this?
Sure. So leaky gut is kind of a layman's term. What it really refers to is increased intestinal permeability. Meaning the lining of your intestines, it becomes more permeable than it should be, like a sieve with holes that are too big.
Ah, okay. I get it.
So things that should stay inside your gut, they can leak out into your bloodstream, and that can trigger inflammation throughout the body.
Oh, wow. So we're not just talking about a smelly belly button anymore, huh? This could have some pretty serious consequences.
Right. And it might even mess with the communication between the gut and the brain.
The gut-brain connection. I hear that's pretty important.
Oh, yeah. Super important. Your gut and your brain, they're constantly talking to each other, sending signals back and forth.
So leaky gut could disrupt that communication, and that could lead to all sorts of problems, I'm guessing.
Exactly. It's a complex system, and when one part goes awry, it can have ripple effects throughout the body.
Wow. Okay, so we've got this picture of dysbiosis, leaky gut, and maybe some gut-brain disruption. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Apparently, EO seems to be more common in people born in the late 1990s, specifically in late August.
Yeah, that was a weird one. Late August babies from the 90s. Who knew?
Seriously. What's so special about them?
Well, the paper offers a few possible explanations. One thought is that the late summer humidity might have something to do with it.
Humidity.
Yeah, think about it. Late August, it's hot, it's sticky, lots of sweaty bellies.
Oh, yeah.
And that creates a perfect environment for those odor-producing bacteria to thrive. Like the humidity's turning up the volume on the odor.
Interesting. So sweaty bellies in the late summer heat, that could create a breeding ground for these stinky bacteria.
Yeah.
But if it's all about bacteria and sweat, wouldn't those factors still be in play today? Why this apparent spike in cases linked to the 90s specifically?
That's a good question, and honestly, it's something researchers are still trying to figure out. There are a couple of other theories, though. One idea is that maybe the stress levels of mothers during those late summer months, August heat, maybe that could have affected the development of their baby's gut microbiome somehow.
So like prenatal stress impacting gut bacteria. I could see that.
Yeah. And then there's the whole thing about the dietary trends of the 90s.
Ah, the 90s. The era of sugary cereals, fast food, and those low-fat snacks that were actually loaded with sugar.
Exactly. Not exactly a recipe for a healthy gut, right? All those processed foods, low-fiber diets, those kinds of choices, especially in early childhood, they can really shift the balance of bacteria in the gut.
Makes sense. So maybe those dietary choices, they set the stage for these 90s babies to be more prone to EO later in life.
Could be. It's fascinating to think about how choices made decades ago, they might still be having an impact today. Like, who would have thought that your childhood diet could come back to haunt you in the form of a smelly belly button?
Right. Talk about long-term consequences.
Yeah.
Okay, so get this. The paper discusses a study, and this is where things get really weird. They found that people who ate those Trebor Extra Strong mints, you know, the ones in the green tin.
Yeah, the classic mints.
Those people actually had milder EO symptoms. Some even went into remission. Who knew those mints could be such a secret weapon?
Pretty wild, right? But there might be a reason for it. Menthol and rosmarinic acid, they're both found in mint, and they have antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties.
So those mints might be helping to fight off the bad bacteria and calm down the inflammation in the gut.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is the study suggests that early intervention is key, like starting in childhood. So those after-dinner mints, they might have been doing more than just freshening breath.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. But honestly, given what we've learned about the gut microbiome, it makes sense that something as simple as a mint could have such an impact.
Right. Absolutely. It just goes to show how powerful even small changes in our diet can be. We're talking about a whole ecosystem in there, this complex world of bacteria, and even something as simple as a mint can tip the scales.
Wow. Okay, so we've got leaky guts, 90s babies, and now we're throwing mints into the mix. This is getting pretty wild. But speaking of wild, let's talk about one of the most fascinating aspects of EO, its impact on children.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Kids, especially those under 6, they seem to have a really strong reaction to the odor of EO.
Yeah, I've heard about this. They cry or try to avoid people with the condition, like they're picking up on some kind of danger signal.
Right. And studies have shown that exposure to the odor actually increases their cortisol levels. That's the stress hormone. So their little bodies are literally sending out stress signals.
Wow, that's incredible. So what's going on there? Why such a strong reaction from kids?
Well, researchers believe it could be an evolutionary thing. You see, kids have super sensitive noses.
Way more sensitive than ours, right?
Definitely. And it's thought that this heightened sense of smell, it might be a protective mechanism. A way for them to detect potential threats in their environment, threats that adults might miss.
So it's like their bodies are saying, danger, something's not right here. That's a pretty powerful instinct. It makes you wonder, what else are our bodies picking up on through our sense of smell that we might not even be aware of?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Our sense of smell is much more complex than we give it credit for. It's constantly gathering information from our surroundings, and our brains are processing those signals, influencing our behavior, our emotions, in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Wow, that's giving me a whole new perspective on the power of our noses. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's take a quick pause here to catch our breath. We've covered a lot of ground already. We've talked about what EO is, the possible causes, the leaky gut connection, those 90s babies, and even the surprising role of Trebor Extra Strong mints.
And we've just scratched the surface of this condition and what it can teach us about the amazing world of the gut microbiome and the power of our senses.
It's incredible how much we're still learning about our own bodies.
Right. There's always more to discover. Welcome back to our deep dive. We were talking about those late August babies from the 90s and their potential connection to EO.
Right. It was such a weird finding. So, do you think that means all those 90s babies should stock up on Trebor Extra Strong mints?
Well, I wouldn't start panic buying mints just yet. Remember, EO is still pretty rare, and the research is ongoing.
True. Plus, it's not like everyone born in late August of 94 is walking around with a smelly belly button, right?
Exactly. There are lots of other factors at play. Like we talked about, those dietary habits of the 90s, those could be a big piece of the puzzle.
Makes sense. So maybe those mints are more like a tasty way to support gut health in general.
Absolutely. And speaking of gut health, we were talking about leaky gut earlier and how it could be connected to EO.
Right. Leaky gut. Basically, when the lining of your intestines gets, well, leaky. Like a sieve with holes that are too big.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And because of that, things that should stay inside your gut, they can leak out into your bloodstream. And that can cause inflammation all over.
Right. And it can mess with the communication between your gut and your brain.
The gut-brain connection.
Yes.
Super important stuff. It's fascinating how much our gut health impacts our overall well-being, even our mental and emotional state.
It really is.
Yeah.
So putting it all together, it seems like EO might be a sign of a deeper problem happening in the gut.
That's what the research suggests, yeah. EO itself isn't necessarily dangerous, but it could be a sign that something's off in your gut microbiome. And that can have consequences beyond just, a bit of an odor.
So what should someone do if they think they might have EO? Where do they even start?
Well, first things first, talk to a doctor. They can rule out any other potential causes, and if it is EO, they can help you come up with a plan.
So no self-diagnosing with Dr. Google and a lifetime supply of mint tea.
Probably not the best approach. While those Trebor Extra Strong mints and probiotic drinks, they show some promise, it's always best to get professional advice.
Right, of course. Speaking of probiotic drinks,
Yeah.
how do those actually work to improve gut health?
Probiotics are basically live bacteria, the good kind, and when you eat or drink them, they help restore the balance in your gut microbiome. They crowd out the bad bacteria and make a healthier environment.
So it's like introducing a friendly army to fight off the odor-causing invaders.
Exactly. And there are tons of options out there. Kefir, kombucha, yogurt drinks, all sorts of things.
And I remember you mentioned a study where combining those mints with the probiotic drinks seemed to really boost the results.
Oh yeah, that one was really interesting. Combining them led to a significant decrease in the odor and those IBS-like symptoms. And get this, it actually improved gut bacteria diversity by a whopping 120%.
120%.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Makes you think everyone should be adding more mints and probiotics to their routine, EO or not.
It's certainly food for thought. A holistic approach to gut health is never a bad idea.
Okay, so we've talked about potential solutions, the importance of professional advice. But before we move on, I want to go back to those kids and their super sensitive sniffers for a second. It's wild how they react to EO.
I know, it really makes you think. What if adults are missing out on crucial information because our senses aren't as sharp as theirs?
Right. It's like we've traded our animal instincts for, I don't know, modern conveniences.
Maybe. But what if we could reclaim some of that lost wisdom by, better understanding our senses? Especially smell.
It's kind of a mind-blowing idea. What if we could train our noses to be more sensitive to smell changes in our environment or even in our own bodies? Like, what if we could smell illness before we even had symptoms?
Now, that would be amazing. Imagine being able to smell danger before you could see it. That would be like a superpower.
Right. An olfactory superpower. It makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there just waiting to be unlocked if we only paid more attention to our sense of smell.
I completely agree. And, as strange as EO might seem, maybe it's the key that unlocks some of those olfactory secrets. It definitely shows us how connected our gut health, our sense of smell, and our overall well-being really are.
It feels like we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible when it comes to understanding our bodies.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this area of research so exciting. Every new discovery leads to more questions and more possibilities. We're just at the beginning of exploring the power of our senses and our gut microbiome.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey today exploring this whole world of epigastric olfactorosis.
Yeah, from smelly belly buttons to leaky guts, super sniffing kids to minty miracles. Who knew there was so much to unpack?
Right, and it all started with this weird smell. It's incredible how one unusual condition can lead to so many fascinating insights about our bodies.
It's a reminder that everything is connected, Our gut, our senses, our overall well-being. It's all intertwined.
Absolutely. And speaking of those surprising connections, I'm still stuck on those Trebor Extra Strong mints, those little green lifesavers.
Right. It's like an old wives' tale, isn't it? Got a smelly belly button, pop a mint. But the science seems to back it up.
It does. Those mints could be a real game changer for gut health. Simple, effective, and minty fresh.
Exactly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. And speaking of powerful, we've talked a lot about the gut microbiome today, but those kids with their super sensitive noses, they really stole the show for me.
I know, right? It's amazing how they react to EO, like their bodies are warning them of some unseen danger.
It makes you wonder, what if we adults are missing out on important information because our senses aren't as sharp?
Right. We're so focused on what we can see and hear, but what if smell is the key to a whole other level of understanding? Like, what if we could train our noses to be more sensitive, to smell changes in our environment, or even in our own bodies?
Imagine that, being able to smell illness before you even have symptoms or sense danger before it's visible. We'd be like olfactory superheroes.
Olfactory superheroes. I love it. But seriously, it makes you think, what else are we missing out on because we're not paying attention to our sense of smell?
I think there's a whole world of possibilities waiting to be discovered. And who knows, maybe EO, as strange as it is, might be the key that unlocks some of those olfactory secrets.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? This whole journey started with a weird smell, And it's led us to all these incredible insights about the gut microbiome, the power of our senses, and the interconnectedness of our bodies.
It's a testament to the power of scientific curiosity. You never know where it will lead you.
And it's a reminder that there's always more to learn.
Always. So keep those minds open, those noses sniffing, and who knows what incredible insights you might uncover.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into epigastric olfactorosis. Until next time, keep exploring.